Thank you, Abraham. This is my third time here, and our last conversation really transformed me. I have many questions, but these two are big for me. First one is I would like to clean up my vibration. And this one, since I was a kid, I've been saving this question. Can you please explain source? I've been reading Seth for a few years, and Seth says that the nature of all that is can only be sensed through the inner senses, or a weaker way through the inspiration or intuition. He also talked about the different kinds of consciousness and use. And
before you go further, just think about that first sentence that you offered. Say it again. Just the very first sentence. Source can only be sensed
through the inner senses.
Through the inner senses. So what Seth was saying, Seth is like Abraham. Chips off the same block. In other words, it's same family of teachers. And Jane Roberts stood in the place that Esther is standing and was receiving the vibration and putting those vibrations into words. And while there are similarities, there were interests that Jane and her husband Rob held that are different than what Jerry and Esther held. And so there is some variation, but it is essentially the same understanding of non-physical. So it's a fun resource. As you've been listening to us for a while, Seth will make sense to you if you decide that you want to read it, because it's a lot of the same basis of understanding. So in Abraham terminology, we're going to tell you what that statement is about. As Esther stands here on the stage and allows us to flow through her, we offer blocks of thought, more like radio signals, and Esther receives them unconsciously and finds verbal equivalency, and then expresses the verbal equivalency to the radio signals that she's received. You all do something like this all the time. So, as you listen to her, often she seems confident, she seems really sure of herself. She offers a lot of words, and they all make sense. They fit together one with another, which makes her seem like someone maybe worth listening to. But you might also think, well, this is just someone well-trained and really sure of herself who is spewing yet another opinion, like so many opinions that are spewed around the planet. And so it might feel only that important to you. There's logic in it, but that's the end of it. But when you hear something that we have encouraged, and for example, you get the sense that you are more than your physical body, and that there is a part of you that you might get in touch with. So you ponder that thought and actually do get in touch with that broader part of you. You follow our encouragement to meditate and quiet your mind. And in quieting your mind, your vibration rises. And as your vibration rises, you find vibrational equivalency with who you really are. And then, in that state of connection or alignment, a thought or an impulse occurs to you, personal experience. You're not taking somebody else's word for it. A personal experience happens that when you follow through with it, the results that you're seeking happen, and then you know. We can't say enough into your ear to give you knowing. Your knowing comes only from personal experience. And this inner knowing that is always there for you, you've got to tune to it before you know it. You just can't take somebody else's word for it to be yours. For your vibration to shift and your point of attraction to shift, your vibration has to shift, and that's what that sentence is about.
Seth speaks that, has an analogy of an onion, that there are many layers coming from one core, from one source. And you said in one tape that all entities has an inner being, that has an inner being, that has an inner being, that has an inner being. Source is everything, or source is at the core. I understand that we are source energy, and I feel it, but I would like to understand source.
This will help you. So, layers of the onion. Once we finish this first segment, bring us back to that, because we want to talk about that in relationship to beliefs. So, you know what we were just saying about a vehicle, and then stepping into another one, and then stepping into another one. So source is like that. Source is expanding and evolving, as are you. Humans often think that source is finished and perfect, and now you're trying to catch up. When what is really going on is that You in your human form are extensions of Source. And it is through your exposure to life that causes you to ask for more, which Source then embraces and then becomes. Did you understand?
Sort of.
So when we say that you have an inner being who has an inner being who has an inner being, what we're actually saying is, here is this vehicle, but before this vehicle was this vehicle, also Source, and before this vehicle was this vehicle, also Source, and before this vehicle was this vehicle, also Source. So just like you stand in your 90 years on this planet, but you are one time in your 80s and in your 70s and in your 60s, and while you are not that 1-year-old anymore, still that 1-year-old is part of this 90-year-old that you are. Just understand evolution is just that way, yes? And what's tripping you up is that you weren't willing to let Source be like that. You weren't willing to let Source be something that also is evolving, and so that didn't make sense to you. But now it does, if you think about it, doesn't it? The layers of the onion in what Seth was talking about often, and it certainly is the way that we would use it now. In other words, what you'll hear from us now, at one time, what Seth had to say was the leading edge. It isn't anymore. Oh, the basis is there. But with all of the hundreds of thousands of hours that Esther and those like you and Jerry have been in conversation with infinite intelligence, much that Seth says has moved into a clearer, more easily discernible, understandable place, you see. So the layers of the onion, a lot of people see their belief system as like an onion, and they just peel away layers that don't serve them. And that's one way of looking at it, except that while you're looking at the onion, or while you're looking at the beliefs that aren't serving you and trying to peel them away, you're not peeling them away. You are doubling down on them. You're making them stronger. You're making the onion impervious to being peeled. Does that make sense to you? Because there's no pushing anything away. And so rather than trying to get rid of old beliefs, we're asking you to embrace new ones. Here's this onion, get in this one. Just move more in the direction of what you are wanting. It's not getting rid of anything. It's allowing yourself to be what life has caused you to become.
Can you explain Source? There's no beginning and there's no end. It's hard for our brains to understand that. Such a huge concept.
The other day, Esther was sitting with an intention of cleaning her vibration up on a subject. And as she was doing that, she was using a process called focus wheel, which is, here's the problem. She wrote it at the top of the page. This is what's bugging me. And then she drew a big circle in the center of the page, and in the center she wrote the exact opposite as near as she could define it. I've got this. What I want to feel is this. So she made her statement of intention in the center. And then she just made some statements that sort of bridged between the two. She made as many statements as she could that were more like what was in the middle and less like what was at the edge. She tried to make more statements that matched where she was wanting to be and fewer statements about where she was. Does that make sense? That's sort of the benefit of the focus wheel. And then she did another one and 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 another one, until she just wanted to throw the notebook in the swimming pool, sitting by the swimming pool. She could feel she was bogged down in it. You heard us earlier say, by the way, we're out here on the leading edge, so come along, let's have fun. You heard us say earlier that the problem and the solution are expanding equally. In other words, the velocity of a problem and the velocity of the solution are expanding. They're different frequencies. But what Esther was feeling or sensing was that the more she was trying to fix this problem, looking for a solution, she was actually enhancing the problem rather than finding the solution. So her focus wheel, even though she had good intent, she wasn't getting anywhere with it. Have you ever had that experience? So she sat there, closed her notebook, sitting there holding the pen in her hand with the notebook on her lap, thinking or deciding to stop thinking for a minute. And then the thought came to her. If I could have anything I want regarding this, a sort of a world event sort of thing. If I could have anything I want, and then right in the middle of that thought came an improved onion. one with less layers that were binding her. Since I can have anything I want. Not if. Since I can have anything I want. What do I want? And because Esther's tuned into us so often, that bridge was an easy one for her to make. And all of a sudden, she was overcome, maybe the best word that she would use, with clarity of desire that was so pure and clear and absent of any problems. It was like anything that she wanted. It felt fresh and new. And she wasn't dragging old beliefs and trying to fix them. It felt to her like she went through a portal where all things were possible. And her desire was at such a heightened place, she tapped right into the desires on that subject that she'd been accumulating maybe her whole life, and felt the clarity of what her inner being knows about that. That's what you're reaching for. And it's not going to come every day, but it is going to come on the things that really matter to you. But you have to find a way. This is the bottom line here. You have to find a way that the beliefs that you're dragging around are not active at the same time that you're focused on your desires. Because whatever you're focused upon is active. And if you've got an active belief in your vibration, it is most likely blocking out your reception of what you really want. So you just got to decide, what influence do I want to be under? Do I want to be under the influence of source or under the influence of something else? Do I want to be under the influence of the solution or under the influence of the problem? And you know how you get there easily is meditate. Because when you meditate, you stop your thoughts. And when you stop your thoughts, you stop your beliefs. And when you stop your beliefs, you stop your resistant beliefs. And when there's no resistance within your vibration rises. And there your inner being is right there ready to meet you with clarity. With clarity. So no rush, because your inner being isn't saying, time's a wasting, time's a wasting. Your inner being is just right there, knowing what you want, knowing where you are in relationship to what you want, guiding you to exposure to thoughts and experiences that take you closer and closer and closer to what you want. But you know what trips so many of you up? Often you're standing in a place that you don't want to be, and your inner being is calling you closer to where you want to be, but because you're being called closer to where you want to be, and because you're like the corn in the ground that is evolving and it's not going to happen all at once this red hot minute, you grow impatient. You're not sensitive enough to note the improvement because you're looking for the manifestation rather than looking for the improved emotion. If you could let what you're looking for be just feeling better, if you could let what you're looking for be a sense of relief, if you could let what you're looking for be a vibrational experience rather than a park it in the garage experience, as in a car manifested or a business manifesting or a lover manifesting, if you could let it be just the improvement in the way you feel, then you could know for sure with first-hand knowledge that you are moving toward what you want. And just like the farmer with the seed of corn in the ground, you're willing to let it be in the ground. You're not only willing to let it be in the ground, you want it to stay into the ground until it's ready to come out and be what you want it to be.
You think it's important to develop those inner senses that self-talk?
Only if you want to be happy. We think it is essential to deliberate creation, to understand that you live in a vibrational world and that your emotions are your key to how you're doing vibrationally. And anything less than that leaves you like a cork on a raging sea, bopping around, bipping around, bobbing around, and reacting to life, but having no control. But when you accept that you are a vibrational being in a vibrational universe, and that you have a vibrational inner being who's offering you vibrational signals, and you know that your key to recognizing those vibrations is emotion, if you will follow good feelings, eventually in the midst of those good feelings, you will receive clear thought and clear impulse to act, and excellent timing in co-creating with others who are there too, you see. Oh, this isn't hard. It's so easy, but it does require reorienting yourself from a physical what is world. Humans are looking around, we love you so much, at what is, and from what is you're creating more. But instead of looking or sensing or feeling toward what's coming, you keep looking at what is. And what is a vibrational frequency that prevents the new. If you're so enamored by what is, wanted or unwanted, it can't become more.